Hi, everyone, and welcome. We're just waiting a few seconds here. We've got some less second entries. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I am Dr. Joel Solano. I am a physician and glaucoma specialist and founder of Eyecbetter. And we put this webinar today for you to show you our passion and excitement for preventing vision loss. And we hope that by the end of it, you guys share our enthusiasm for what we're doing. A few housekeeping items. We are going to be taking questions. It'll be a little bit of an open forum. So I'll give you guys about 10 minutes of an introduction and highlights about what's been happening with the company. But we'll be taking questions at the end. And we have been getting some email questions, which we've got those ready to go as well. If you have questions, please put them in the chat section, and Joy and I will be going through those either in real time or at the end. So again, welcome. Let's talk for a second about eye pressure. When people have high eye pressure, that steals vision. Okay, we call that glaucoma. And when you have glaucoma, if you lose vision to that high pressure, that vision is gone. It can't be recovered. No physician can do that. Vision loss is so devastating that as healthcare providers, we screen for this disease at every single eye exam that's being done every day all over the world. So millions of times a day, we worry so much about this disease that we are screening for it. If you've had an eye exam where you went to get glasses or contact lenses, you had your pressure checked. And that pressure check, that was a test screening for high pressures, again, screening for glaucoma. So if you think back to the eye exams that you've had, you might recall that puff of air test. That's the one where they blow the air into your cornea, and it's a little bit startling. What they were doing was measuring your pressure. If you didn't have that method of having your pressure checked, then they probably poked at your eye with a clunky medical device. So again, both of those two things were testing for the same thing. Does this person have high pressure? Because if they do, we worry that they're going to lose vision from glaucoma. What Eyecbetter has done is that we are developing technology so that we can screen for this disease without having to touch the eye or blow that puff of air. Okay, so again, you think about millions of times a day, we're screening for this disease, not just in the US, but all over the world. What I'm telling you is that we are developing a product that allows you to have a choice. Okay, so think to yourself, if I have a choice between checking my pressure by being poked in the eye, or now the Eyecbetter solution, I can have my pressure checked without even touching the eye using just light and sound. Well, then it starts to create a pretty compelling story. If you give me the choice, I'm going to choose the no touch. Okay. What's really cool is that our financial projections have embedded in them a 6% conversion rate. Okay. So what does that mean? What we're saying is that if you give humanity a choice between being poked in the eye and doing it the Eyecbetter way, 6% of them are going to choose the Eyecbetter way. So ask yourself, what would you choose? If you feel like 6% is an underestimate, then you're going to find the value that we bring to our shareholders to be pretty compelling. And I happen to share that contention that I think 6% is incredibly conservative. I think that if you give people the choice, I think most of them will say, yeah, I don't want to get poked in the eye. That's a simple choice. And actually, Joy, I'm going to pause just for a second. Let me know if you get questions in the chat that you want me to answer in real time. And I'm glad to pause.
Will do.
Okay.
I would say just nothing yet, but if you do have questions, everyone, just put them in the chat and we'll get to them when we get there.
Sounds good. Okay, so Eyecbetter is bringing to fruition a device that allows us to screen for a blinding disease, and we don't stop there. We go beyond that. So we also want to go on and say, for those people that actually have glaucoma, so we've already identified them, we want to go further and help them to no longer lose vision. As physicians, we're really good at diagnosing glaucoma, and we've got fantastic treatments for it. Okay, we've been working on this disease for at least 50 to 100 years. So we've got great drugs, we've got great surgeries, we've got laser surgery, incisional surgery. And yet, even to this day, people are losing vision to glaucoma. So you say, well, why is that? If you doctors are so good at this, how come people continue to lose vision? The answer lies in the care plan. Okay, so as a physician, I can tell, like this morning, I was seeing patients. Mrs. Smith comes in to see me, and I say, Mrs. Smith, you've got moderate to severe disease. I'm going to start you on this drug, and I want to see you back in 2 weeks to see how your pressure responds to make sure that it gets to the goal that I want it to get to. But what happens when they leave my office? I have no idea. I don't know if they got to the pharmacy. I don't know if they went to the pharmacy and then couldn't afford the medication. Maybe the medication wasn't in stock. Maybe they were so shocked by the diagnosis that I made that they weren't even able to accept it, and maybe they want a second opinion. Anyway, there's a myriad of reasons why what happens when they leave my office doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to execute what I'm asking them to do. Okay. So that's what we've done is we've created a digital therapeutic. What's a digital therapeutic? A digital therapeutic is a system of humans, software, and hardware that help us stop this disease. Okay, so we've spoken about the device. We've talked about if you give people a choice, they want the no contact choice. Now we've also got a team of humans that are watching what people do when they leave my office. Why? Because as a physician, I don't have time to keep track of my book of 3,000 patients when they leave the office. Okay. So that's what we've done at Eyecbetter is we're attacking all of the low-hanging fruit to saving vision. Again, we go to these industry meetings, we go to conferences, and what do we talk about? We've got talk after talk about treatments. We've got new drugs, we've got surgeries, we've got minimally invasive glaucoma surgery, all these great advancements, but yet people keep losing vision. What we're saying at Eyecbetter is that if you want to fix or stop vision loss on a population scale, we've got to start picking these low-hanging fruits. What are the low-hanging fruits? Well, it's three things. We've got to do a better job at screening. Okay, 50% of people with this disease don't even know they have it. How is that? That's absolutely terrible, and we should be ashamed of ourselves for that. Part of it is that people don't like the screening test. I have people tell me every day, I don't go to the eye doctor because I don't want that eye puff test. Okay, well, there's a low-hanging fruit. Eyecbetter solves that. What's the next thing? Well, once you have the disease, we have to keep monitoring it because glaucoma gets worse over your life. Okay. But again, if people don't have a comfortable way of doing it, they're not empowered to measure the pressure themselves. They just don't do that. Eyecbetter solves that problem. And then we just talked about what happens when patients leave my office. I don't know. Well, neither does any physician. That's what Eyecbetter solves as well. We're an ancillary provider, and we're holding patients' hands through their whole journey to make sure that the care plan that their physician wrote for them is actually being executed. Okay. So it's really it's changing the paradigm for saving vision. We have great treatments. We're good at diagnosing, but there's these other three fruits that are sitting there that nobody is working on. And that's what we've brought this team together to do, to solve this problem so that we're not saving individual people's vision, we're saving people's vision as a whole, as a society. Let's go to some questions, Joy. Oh, and before that, we just got some exciting news this morning that we have been invited to present at the Innovators Conference, which is attached to the American Academy of Ophthalmology. So that's starting in early November. And again, we just got that invitation. So that sort of lends some of the, I guess, not endorsement, Joy, but people see what we're doing and they're starting to embrace what we're doing. So it's really exciting. At the American Academy of Ophthalmologists, there's 10,000 of these doctors there. And so to be invited to do that is pretty heartwarming.
Yeah, I think Joel, just to add to that, we are getting a buzz in the industry of optometry and ophthalmology, and it's because no one in this industry has figured out how to address that lifelong treatment journey for the patient. And one of the most powerful things that we're excited about at Eyecbetter when we say we're preventing blindness is we're preventing treatable blindness. Just because you're diagnosed with glaucoma doesn't mean you have to go blind, but you very well can go blind if you don't follow that treatment plan for your whole life. So that's what we're excited to bring to the table. And to what Joel just said, being asked to present at this Innovators Accelerator Conference in a couple weeks, we're very excited about. And I see that we have a hand raised from Amy Dixon, who is also on our team. I have to, before I turn this over to your question, Amy, I've got to tell everyone who you are. Amy is a tremendous partner of Eyecbetter. She's our Director of Patient Advocacy. She is also blind, and she is a decorated Paralympian in the sport of triathlon. She is an 8-time gold medalist who lost her vision in her mid to late 20s. And her story is so powerful because, well, I'll let her tell you why. Amy, take it away.
Thanks for the intro, Joy. I am just so excited to be part of this team, and I'm really excited that we're hosting this webinar today for patients, doctors, and potential investors in Eyecbetter. I was so inspired. I mean, I hate using the word inspiration because people tell me I'm inspiring every day, and I say, well, I'm surrounded by people that are changing the face of the medical industry. And when I saw Dr. Joel Solano speak last winter at Glaucoma Research Foundation about this concept of Eyecbetter, I knew that this was the way forward for millions of patients across the United States, not just a small section of his 3,000 patients, but every patient in the US living with glaucoma. I was diagnosed about 15 years ago with treatable glaucoma, but unfortunately, because I waited so long to go to the doctor after initial diagnosis, I lost 70% of my vision within the first 3 months, and that was irreversible blindness. And they call glaucoma the silent thief of sight for a reason. They're usually in the beginning, there are no symptoms. It's not painful. It's not uncomfortable. A lot of times your visual acuity, I mean, still to this day, even though I'm considered blind, I could pass an eye exam on an eye chart because I have perfect vision straight ahead, but I have almost zero peripheral vision. I have complete tunnel vision. So if I'm looking at someone from a conversational distance of 5 feet away, I can only see a quarter of their face. So I can only see your right eye, part of your nose, and maybe your eyebrow. So I always laugh. My nieces like to stick their tongue out at me and make fun of me, and they get away with it. So, but all of this is preventable. You know, I'm no longer driving a car. You know, I'm now using a cane and a guide dog, and had someone held me accountable and made sure that I was compliant in my care, that I had come back for that crucial next appointment after this puff test that Dr. Solano had talked about. Had I come back and taken eye drops initially, possibly had surgery in the beginning, I wouldn't have had to go out of my job as a master sommelier, working as the buyer for a chain of wine stores in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, making a good salary, a 6-figure salary, to going on Social Security disability, barely able to pay my rent, barely able to afford the medications to treat my eye disease, having to go on immunosuppressive drugs for my uveitis. You know, this was a life-changing diagnosis for me. And had I had the support of a patient care advocate and the app that Eyecbetter is using today to connect to their patients, I would have had the tools to manage my disease. I would have had the wisdom of Dr. Joel Solano at my fingertips and his amazing team of patient caregivers to hold my hand through this process, to make me understand and educate me about the importance of managing my disease, the importance of managing my eye drops, the importance of being a partner in my care, and not saying, well, it doesn't hurt. I see fine straight ahead. I can pass an eye exam. I don't know what he's talking about. And then 3 months later, really, really living to regret my decisions, right? And so when I heard Dr. Solano speak, I realized that I wanted to be part of this change. I wanted to empower other patients to not, you know, I live a wonderful, wonderful life. I'm very blessed. I'm a Paralympian. I was ranked #1 in the world in my sport in triathlon. I've turned my disability into a superpower. However, not everyone is Amy Dixon. Not everyone is the success story of turning their disability into something that is a positive. And a lot of people are embarrassed. They end up losing their jobs. They lose their income. They lose the ability to provide for their families, their ability to drive a car. We can prevent most blindness due to glaucoma by catching it early, having patient compliance, having this the simplicity of the app that Dr. Solano has invented is it gives you accountability every day to take your drops. A couple days in a row, if I don't take my drops, I might get a phone call from somebody in Dr. Solano's office saying, "Hey, Amy, what's going on? I see you haven't taken your Alphagan or your latanoprost in a couple days in a row. What's going on?" I'm like, "Well, I'm really embarrassed to tell you I can't afford it." He goes, "No problem. We've got some samples. Come by the office." Or, "No problem. We've got the pharmaceutical company just dropped off some coupons." Again, being part of that communication, that direct communication with my doctor, being a partner in my care, and taking the heavy lifting off of me and putting it onto the physician's office with this incredible platform that he's created. And then the coolest thing is that this week, Joy and I, the director of marketing, are meeting with the largest employer of persons living with blindness and disabilities. I can't say who it is yet because we've got the meeting on Friday to talk about vocational rehab for people living with blindness to come and work for us as these patient care coordinators. How cool would it be to have 300 people living with blindness who have been there, done that, have experienced everything that I'm experiencing, having to apply for Social Security disability, having to live with blindness, having to learn how to use a smartphone with no vision, all of these things, to be able to hold their hand and walk them through their process or prevent it from happening in the first place, right? So we've got this meeting on Friday to hire these people, bring them into the fold at Eyecbetter, and put our money where our mouth is and employ persons with visual disabilities to come and work for us and empower patients to continue seeing for years to come. And that is one of the many reasons I'm so proud to be a part of this team.
And Amy, it's a real shame, honestly, that you lost vision. And part of the reason is that as physicians, people think that we have the ability to stop the disease, and we don't. The only thing we've been trained to do is to diagnose the disease and treat the disease. And that's where we failed you. And that's where Eyecbetter steps in and says, physicians aren't trained in what services are available to people. We don't know, who the low vision specialist is. We don't know what programs are available to help people pay for medications, to help them get rides to their physician, how to plug them into mental health resources when they're having depression because they're terrified of losing their vision. And so again, we're stepping in and filling that healthcare void, and it is pretty shameful that happened to you in modern day, and it continues to happen every day. So again, it's a huge void. We're the first ones to step into it and try to solve this, and hopefully the future is different for all of us. So yeah, thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Great insight. Thank you, Amy. Okay, so we have got some great questions. I'm looking at 8 questions right now. Shall we dig into some of these?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so Joel, first question comes from Kate. How can AI be used to analyze data collected by the device?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. So we're actually currently using AI in 2 aspects of our platform. The first aspect has to do with the device itself. So when we measure pressure, we're using light that's getting reflected off of the surface of the eye, and it creates what's called a speckle pattern. And for those of you who haven't seen the video that we have on our website, it's actually really pretty interesting. But the amount of data that gets collected there is so vast that it requires AI to help us process that so that we can then derive the pressure from there. So that's the first place where we use AI in our offerings. The second place, which is still in its infancy, is that we're going to have a platform where we're going to know what people's pressures are and what treatments they're using. And so at present day, when I see a patient in the office, all I have is my personal experience and what I've read from other physicians regarding which drop might be most effective for this type of glaucoma. But what's about to happen is that we'll have millions of data points now where I can tell you if Mrs. Smith is an African American female in her 50s, this is the most appropriate treatment for her. And so we'll really be able to help physicians customize the treatments that we're trying to do. So really, yes, AI is a big part of what we're doing. And yeah, great question.
Excellent. Thank you, Joel. Next question comes from Kay. She wants to know how long before your device is ready?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you think about how devices come to market, what's the first thing that has to happen? The first thing is somebody has to have an idea. So we conceptualize an idea. We decide, okay, the way we're measuring pressure right now is pretty archaic. You've got to poke the eye. Nobody likes that. You got to poke, puff the air. So there's a concept phase. Then you have to do some research. Well, has somebody tried to fix this problem that you've identified? What's out there in the market? And then the next thing is, okay, you've found research, you found a void. Well, now you're going to have to start designing a device. Then you're going to have to build a prototype of the device. Then you're going to have to test it in a lab. And then once you've tested it in a lab, now you're going to have to test it on humans. And then once you've figured out that it works on humans and it's safe, then you get to seek approval from the FDA before you can market and sell the device. So where we're at in our progress is that our device, our prototype is built. We've already tested it in a lab. We know that it's working. We've started the miniaturization of the product, and it's already being used in clinical trials. So our next step is really to seek approval. So we're planning to put this in front of FDA at the end of 2024, which gets our product to market hopefully in early 25. The reason I give you that whole story is because it's easy to say, look, we're about to go to FDA and that's exciting. But really, there's been years of work that has gone to get us to this point. So yeah, fantastic question.
Excellent, excellent. Dr. Solano, how much do patients have to pay for this?
Yeah, so when we started the company, those of you who have been with me from the beginning, we thought, okay, we're helping people with a blinding disease. I bet you that we can get patients to pay for this themselves. So we started out thinking of our products as a direct-to-consumer product. What we quickly realized is that, especially in the US, patients don't like to pay for healthcare. If it's not a reimbursable, insurance-covered solution, the resistance to people getting those products is pretty high. So that's when we sort of shifted our way of thinking and said, okay, of the offerings that we're doing, we know that there's people out there treating glaucoma. We also are treating glaucoma. What can we do to have third-party payers and Medicare cover those services? And one of the nice things that happened with the pandemic was that Medicare realized there's just not enough physicians for the amount of disease and patients that are out there. So they created these remote digital programs. And so that's what we're using are the Medicare remote digital programs to get our services paid for the patients. So really the services that we provide are like any other glaucoma related services. It's an insurance third-party payer that covers those. We have already launched our digital therapeutic in my clinic here in Southern California. And I'm proud to say we've got a 100% reimbursement rate. And that's very easy to say, but again, so much work went into that. When you start a medical device company or a company that's providing healthcare, one of the big obstacles is reimbursement. How are you going to get this thing paid? And again, that's a multi-year process. A lot of work goes into that. We've already solved it. We've already tested those codes, and they're already being reimbursed. So that's also a pretty exciting milestone that we've reached.
So every time a doctor prescribes Eyecbetter's solution to one of their patients, not only is the doctor providing better a patient outcome, the doctor is generating additional revenue. Eyecbetter is generating additional revenue, and our shareholders are becoming more successful. So it's a win-win, I guess you would say. Okay. Different question comes from Kayla, and if it's okay, I'd like to ask this of our Chief Financial Officer. Kayla wants to know, why should I invest in Eyecbetter?
Thanks, Joy. Glad to see everybody. Thankful for this opportunity. The greatest investors typically are made up of a few investments that really performed well. So even though they diversify themselves as they should, there's always some things that just went really well, and that's what made the return in their portfolio. If somebody was a great investor today, they may have invested in Tesla. If today somebody thought about that investment and said, do electric cars make sense? Do electric cars make sense the way that Tesla is doing them today? Most people, I think, would say yes to that. Did they make sense 10 years ago? Did they make any less sense 10 years ago? 10 years ago, Tesla made sense in my mind. Electric cars made sense in my mind. They were probably a meaningful value proposition to many people. Tesla from 10 years ago until today, though, has, as an investment, has increased over 20,000%. Would we all love to have that in our portfolio? Sure. Can we bank on always finding those? No, we can't. But while the greatest investments are made up, investors typically are made up of a few big wins like that. The greatest investments tend to be when the risk is shared and the mission makes sense for a lot of people. That's where we are today, is that so many things have lined up. Will we eventually ask ourselves collectively, why did we get poked in the eye? Why did we get uncomfortable puffs of air? We absolutely will. That's not in question. But when will we be able to ask ourselves that? That's what's in question. We'll be able to ask ourselves that when we bring people together to share the risk of doing what absolutely makes sense, which is leveraging technology, leveraging the reimbursement that's available for people's care, leveraging the care that doctors can provide, and supplementing that with care that additional people can provide. When the sooner and the faster we do that together, the quicker we can ask ourselves the question, why did we ever get poked in the eye? And I'm a believer in that. That in and of itself is why somebody should invest. What should happen when somebody does invest? What would make that successful? What would make that successful is a pretty conservative set of assumptions, with 6 million or so people over the next 5 years suffering in the US and 100+ million people suffering worldwide, and many markets like our market for healthcare that additional care can be provided and devices can be leveraged and apps and technology can be leveraged. What would make it a successful investment is a relatively conservative assumption of how many of those people we reach. If we provide 500,000 people that type of care and that type of device over the next 5 years, we're talking about a large set of revenue, over $300 million annually by that point. So I think what will make this a successful investment? Shared risk with people moving as quickly as they can, and the belief and the conviction in that, as well as a relatively minimal amount of traction that we know we can get and we can probably exceed. So I'm excited about that opportunity. And the best part of it all at the end of the day is that it's even better than Tesla, because it helps people more than Tesla does.
Love that,
Yep.
Matt. Thank you. Couldn't agree more. Okay, so Matt, I think what a powerful answer. But you did mention the US, and I know Pierre's got a question. I think if we could take a leap across the pond, Joel. This next question is, can you talk about the cost of the solution and the possibilities of it being distributed in Europe? Yeah, and I know you can answer that because we have a plan for that.
We do indeed. So we're based here in the United States, and so It makes most sense for us to launch our services and products here in the United States, where we know the healthcare system. But what ends up happening is that there are about 13 countries in Western Europe that really have a very similar healthcare system to the one that we have. So our plan is to launch this here in the US, and then very soon after that, start expanding into Western Europe. At the same time, we talked earlier about direct to consumer. There certainly are countries where people have the wherewithal and have the disease where they're going to want the products that we're offering. So there certainly will be that opportunity to go direct to consumer. But really, the plan is to start here in the United States, move into Western Europe, and then on to further developed countries.
Excellent. And Pierre, if you've got any additional questions from that, just throw them in the chat and we'll get to those as well. Dr. Solano, what makes you think that doctors will prescribe this?
Well, because they're struggling in their clinics, just like I have been. When I see a patient in my office, I first of all, I have way too many patients. I don't know if there's anybody in the US that can get a doctor's appointment in a short amount of time. It just doesn't happen. So there's not enough doctors for not enough, or I'm sorry, there's not enough doctors for way too many patients, and the ratio keeps worsening. So I need help. I can't provide the care that people deserve in the amount of time that I have. And so that's where I have to reach out to these ancillary providers to say, look, I'm good at diagnosing, I'm good at treating, but we're not moving the needle as far as stopping the disease processes that we're fighting. And so I'm not the only one that feels like that. Ask your own physicians. Hey, do you feel satisfied with the career you chose? I guarantee you there's many really we'll say sour answers that you're going to get to that question. So yeah, we presented last year at the American Academy of Ophthalmology, and we've got a list of physicians that are waiting for us to get our products out to them. So that makes me really proud, and it makes me know that what we're doing matters, not just to patients, but to the physicians that are struggling with just having very challenging work days. If you want to help people and you can't, well, that sort of goes against why you went into medicine in the first place.
And I think just to add to that, because that was such a great perspective from your own clinical perspective, but just having spent the past year talking to all the doctors that are waiting on a waiting list, we need to raise some money to launch this to them. So they're waiting, they're hounding us, if you will. But when you tell doctors about the solution that we're offering, of course, the physicians are very pleased with additional revenue reimbursement opportunities. That goes without saying. But what's really inspiring to us is that we're providing a solution that it's like a breath of fresh air for a doctor, because they know that when they tell somebody they've got a blinding disease and they literally have 10 minutes with that patient and they have to send them out their door because they have 60 more patients to see that day. I mean, imagine if you were seeing 60 people in a day and telling all these patients that they had a blinding disease. It's quite, doctors are really excited to get going. And I can't tell you how excited we are to get going with those doctors. So
it's really a matter, Joy, of what's happening to healthcare on a larger scale. I can imagine a place in time, probably within the next 5 to 10 years, where whatever disease I'm afflicted with, my smartphone is going to be helping me manage that disease. And so that's what we're on the cusp of doing here. The endocrinologists are really good at this. They do it for diabetes. And the cardiologists are really good at this. They do it for rehab, for cardiac rehab. We're the first ones that are putting our toe in the pond here for ophthalmology. But eventually all the specialties are going to have to do this and start to think more progressively. Again, there's not enough physicians. When the people, on this call start to need healthcare in the next 10 years, we're in trouble if we don't find new solutions to manage the problem.
And if you could say there was a gift of the pandemic, I think it would be the evolution of digital healthcare and the tremendous leaps and bounds that so many specialties have taken since then. Ophthalmology, as Joel said, not so much, with the exception of Eyecbetter. But with the diabetes, one of my favorite examples is we've all seen these commercials. They run every single night diabetes companies that have digital technology. They've got a wearable blood sugar monitor that the patient has on their arm. They have the patient looking at their smartphone, and they know that that device on their arm is connecting to the smartphone, and somehow all those measurements that are being recorded are being transmitted to that patient's physician. That's exactly what Eyecbetter is bringing to the table, but we're doing it for eye diseases. And I've got Amy, I know you've got your hand, so I'm going to unmute you.
Yeah, one of the things that I have discovered, I've been very blessed to have been treated by some of the best doctors in the country in New York City and UCLA, UCSD, Shiley Eye Institute. And one of the things, and after having spent the day with Dr. Solano in his practice, I mean, the average physician is spending 6 minutes per patient and seeing, you know, between 40 and 70 patients per day. And that's typical for a glaucoma specialist. And so you can imagine you're diagnosed with this blinding disease. You've been given some pamphlets, some information, and you come back, you're told to come back in 3 months, and you have a million questions and no one to go to other than Dr. Google. And so that's where, you know, the importance of having that patient care coordinator and having somebody, as soon as you walk out of Dr. Solano's practice, he set you up with the app. The next day or that day, you're going to get on a Zoom call with your patient care coordinator, and you're going to sit down and they're going to talk to you about your diagnosis. They're going to explain to you everything that your next steps are going to look like, what your next 3 months are going to look like. They're going to answer all those questions that Dr. Solano doesn't have time to. And if there's something that they can't answer, they're going to go to Dr. Solano and get the answer for you. And I've spoken to dozens of doctors at Mount Sinai and UCLA and at Shiley Eye Institute. They are desperate for this. They are so excited. They have tens of thousands of patients that they want to sign up tomorrow. And we are eager to get this funding up in order because we're ready. We are primed and ready to serve all these patients, but we need to hire the patient care coordinators. We need to get this product to market. We need to get our home tonometer up to speed and out to market for in the beginning of next year. These are critical time crunch things that need to happen. I want this to happen yesterday, as does Dr. Solano, as does this entire team. The need is there, the demand is there. We see it. We see the success of companies dealing with diabetes, and as we know, diabetes and glaucoma often go hand in hand. And the data is very, I hate to say promising because you don't want to talk about, how it's good for us as a business, but it is good for us as a business. We're here to serve people dealing with diabetes and glaucoma. That's what we do. And so from a business standpoint, this is a no-brainer because it's billable and reimbursable by Medicare. That's something that is an easy selling point to any physician who's got a couple thousand patients in his practice. He's got a backlog of patients that need the care that we can give. And we've got the patient care coordinators right at our fingertips, ready to go. All we need is the funding. And that's where Matt and his incredible team come in and can make magic happen.
Excellent. So we spent a lot of time talking about the U.S., and the U.S. is the foundation of our whole model. And we're using it to get started before we go outside of the U.S. I did want to follow up, though, Joel, to Pierre's question about Europe, and just maybe touch base on the other countries that we've selected and why we selected them. Pierre's follow-up question was, the markets in Europe very much rely on products being funded by health insurance. Not many people will buy them by themselves. And I think the short answer, we can certainly continue this conversation offline, but the short answer is we absolutely know, we agree. The countries that we've selected all have universal healthcare of some sort and tie into some of these codes and reimbursable pathways that we've built the U.S. foundation on. And so it won't be exactly like the U.S., but it will be very similar to the U.S. Joel, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I mean, just at a very high level, glaucoma is not unique to the United States, right? Glaucoma occurs all over the world and to all humans. And so, our goal is not just to help people here locally. We're just geographically bound by what we're doing. So we're starting here, but absolutely, this is something that given enough time, will be available in all parts of the world. And in fact, if you think of parts of the world, particularly developing countries where healthcare is really quite limited, or even in rural parts of developed countries like here in the U.S., healthcare is limited, and so that's where solutions like this are really a godsend for these people that are suffering from a blinding disease. So absolutely, we're starting here just because it's our own backyard, but the goal is to get this out to anybody who needs it.
Definitely.
We know the importance of the technology as well, even though our focus is specific and oriented toward care, and hopefully care that's reimbursable, and a device, and hopefully a device that's reimbursable. We also know that the technology itself is super important, because even in a place where somebody couldn't have a device that would help them see what their eye pressure is, or an app that might help them take better care of their eye pressure, at least if they went in clinic, and that's the only place that they could get care, and the only time that they could get care, the technology can improve that environment as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Definitely. Okay, so I have two more questions. I think we're getting close to time. So we'll keep going here. Kayla is asking, Joel, there are other health apps that have a monthly charge and are not billed by insurance. Will Eyecbetter's program be available to patients without insurance?
So one of the things that we set out to do was that we didn't want physicians to think that we were stealing their patients. So when we created this program, I thought to myself, what can I do to make this fail? And one of the big things is I can start alienating all of my colleagues. So what we did was we created a solution where, in order for patients to have it, it has to be prescribed by their personal physician. So just because a human thinks that they have glaucoma and need our solution doesn't mean they get it. They have to be referred in, at least here in the US, has to be referred in by their physician. Why? Because their physician is still supervising their disease. Their doctor is still their doctor. We're an ancillary service that helps their doctor to take care of them. Now, of course, if you're in a developing country and you don't have access to it, well, that's different. But again, within our walls, our goal was to not have physicians feel like we're taking their bread and butter, so to speak.
Joel, I said we had two questions left, but now we have two questions left.
Okay. That's okay.
This one looks like a housekeeping question, should be easy. I tried to invest, but there was a problem with the Start Engine website. Can you help?
Yeah, so that's fantastic. So I've had two issues come up with Start Engine. The first is that when people go to verify their email, it doesn't happen instantly. And we don't know why. We've been in touch with the investor services there at Start Engine, but they're saying for some reason it's taking up to 2 hours to get their email verified. Once it's verified, then they'll be able to start the account. The other issue that we've run into is that we have a fair number of international investors. And so for international investors, it's asking them for a social security number or a UPIN. And the reality is that you don't need those in order to support Eyecbetter. So if you run into those cases, please email me or get in touch with us somehow, because we do have those resources at Start Engine to help us overcome those obstacles. And really, if there's other issues that we're not aware of, again, please let us know.
And that's Dr. Joel Solano at eyecbetter.com.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Gosh, this one is, I think, maybe one of my favorite questions, because this is such a head scratcher to me. But it's a very legitimate question. Do people really not take their prescription drops when they have glaucoma?
Yeah, it's crazy. To this day, I'm shocked by that. Somebody comes to my office and I tell them, you've got a disease that causes blindness, and I've got a treatment for it. If we thought back 200 years ago, I would tell them, you've got this disease and I have nothing for it. That's different. But here we are in modern day. You've got a disease and I've got a simple solution for it. We're going to start with eye drops. And yet there's papers out there that publish compliance rates as low as 16%. So why is that? Again, it goes back to, I don't know what's happening when patients leave my office. Maybe they can't afford the medicines. Again, maybe there's mental health issues there. There's a lot of anxiety and depression that goes along with the fear of vision loss. But again, that's what we're trying to change. As an individual, like for example, I've got a family member that has glaucoma. I can diagnose that person. I can prescribe the right treatment for that person. And I can also monitor what's happening in their life. If they can't afford the medicine, I'll go get it myself. So again, on an individual basis, it's easy for me to take care of this disease and to prevent vision loss. But when we start thinking on a society or on a population-based level, we have to change our way of approaching this. And so that's what Eyecbetter is doing, is we're trying to think of this thing on a more global scale. Yes, we have to train physicians to make the right diagnosis, and we have to have these treatments, but there's so much more to vision loss than we're addressing right now. So these are really low-hanging fruits that I think as we start to harvest these things, we're going to really start to move the needle in the right direction towards preventing vision loss.
I think that's a great conclusion to our webinar today. Eyecbetter, we are fixing a broken treatment pathway. We're so very passionate about what we do. We've got a solid team. We have our solution ready to go. We thank you for joining us this afternoon, this almost evening for some of us, and for your interest in learning more about us and the solutions that we're bringing to market and about the potential investment opportunity. But we can't do it without you. We need your support, and that's why we're all here. We're asking for your investment through the Start Engine platform. So if anybody needs to know where to find us, it's www.startengine.com/Eyecbetter. But really to turn our vision, pun intended, for a good reason, to turn our vision into reality. We really appreciate your support, and we're excited about all the things that we're going to achieve together. So we'd love to have you on this journey with us. And with that, we just want to thank everyone. Dr. Solano, did you want to say any last?
Yeah, just in closing, if there was any questions or other, people want to talk further, we love talking about this stuff. So if you want to chat further, just let us know. We're an email away. We can set up more meetings. You just tell us what you need, and we're here for you. So thanks, everyone.
We will take this recording also and email everyone. I think some folks were coming in and out of the waiting room. So if anybody joined late and you were worried about missing parts of this, we'll follow up and send you a link to the recording. So with that, spread the word, like us, follow us, and maybe invest in us.
Yeah.
So
Please.
thank
Thanks.
you. Have a great day. Bye, everybody.